Okay,
And feel free to start when you're ready.
excellent. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's information session on Upskill Maine, our new grant management system. My name is Dan Bellier, and I'm the Chief Workforce Development Officer for the Maine Community College System, and I lead the Alfond Center for the Advancement of Maine's Workforce. Since the Alfond Center for the Advancement of Maine's Workforce launched in 2021, we built incredible partnerships with employers across the state. So I'm pleased with the collaboration that's taken place and the impact that we've made together. Expanding access to training, strengthening Maine's workforce is so important to all of us. So thank you to your continued support of the Harold Alfond Foundation grant. This grant will serve 70,500 Mainers over the next 5.5 years. And just as a side note, as our last grant closed in December of this past year, we were able to facilitate training for over 30,000 Mainers. So in all total, we'll touch 100,000 individuals over the 8-year period of our grant. Our new grant represents not just an investment in Maine's workforce, but an opportunity to enhance how we work together. This new grant management system will simplify processes, make it easier for our value partners to access funding, and deliver training that meets business workforce needs. We are grateful for your engagement and look forward to answering your questions today. And just a few quick notes before we get started. This session is being recorded. We'll be using that recording and we'll share that out this afternoon with all of you. And we'll also be able to share it with individuals who weren't able to attend. Please stay muted during the presentation to minimize background noises. Questions can be submitted at any time in the chat, and we'll address them as we go. We'll also have a live Q&A session at the end of this session. This information session will run approximately 1 hour, no more, with a presentation by Chris Winstead and a demo by Edward Wright following your questions. I'll now turn it over to Chris Winstead, Deputy Executive Director of Workforce Training with the Alfond Center. Chris, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dan. So why are we here today? We're here to talk about Upskill Maine. Upskill Maine is our new grant management system. So we heard from a lot of our compact members that even though we had a fairly straightforward process for submitting compact member funding requests, there were opportunities for us to be able to put in place a more efficient and user-friendly system for each of you to be able to engage. So taking that feedback, right, and also realizing from our side that it was in some aspects a very manual process when we got into the approvals after everyone entered their funding request, we really wanted to find a system that we could deploy that would help speed up the process, both for you, our compact members, and also for our staff in processing each of these requests. So that's how we came to be launching Upskill Maine. It's a product that we're working with our vendor RSM in development of. We've worked over the last 6-7 months to be able to map all of our processes and be able to develop a tool that we think each of you will find to be a lot easier to use. As Dan alluded to, we're in the midst of our new Alfond grant, started January 1st, 2025. And goes through 2030. This new grant cycle, it is our goal to serve 70,000 Mainers. As Dan alluded to, that's a lift from our last grant, so we had to find ways to be a little bit more efficient with our efforts. So as we log in and Edward demos Upskill Maine, and then when you have a chance on Monday, which is the go live date, February 24th for Upskill Maine, what you're going to find is it's a platform that's fairly intuitive. It does a great job of prompting us through, and it really is a more user-friendly platform. Additionally, one of the pieces that we heard from a lot of our compact members was not only the ability to easily enter those funding requests, but also to be able to track what has been applied for and what has been approved. We are doing our deployment in two phases. So the first phase goes live on the 24th of February. The second phase will be going live in May. So current state will be a process where all compact members, as you're going in and putting those requests, you're going to see what's currently in the system. You'll also see the dollar amount for what was approved. You'll be able to go in and access those requests to do amendments. So if the number of trainees change, if the dates change, you'll be able to go in and self-service through that process. And of course, if at any time you run into challenges, any one of our workforce development coordinators are there to support you through this process. Future state after May will also show the payments that are attached to each of the compact member funding requests. So it will have some additional data regarding release of payments so that you know that that not only has your requests gone in, it's been approved, you'll also be able to see the payment that's coming out to you. Again, this is really about an efficiency for both staff and compact members. And of course, why we're here today is because you asked for this resource and we wanted to be able to deploy that. So, as Dan said, I do want to thank all of our compact members. We would not be here today if it had not been for all of the requests that you put in with our Alfond funding that we had, what we affectionately refer to as 2.0. A reminder that Upskill Maine will be going live on Monday, February 24th.
Thank you, Chris.
And I'm going to turn it over. Sorry, Edward. I was waiting for the next slide to pop up. I'm going to turn it over to Edward Wright, who is one of our workforce development coordinators. Edward is going to walk us through a demo today of Upskill Maine. And this is a chance for all of you to be able to follow Edward and kind of see how the system works. So Edward, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. I am going to see if I can find the correct screen here. Bear with me just a moment. Okay, there we go. Actually, I'm going to go to the home page where you're going to be sent when you originally receive your link. So the first thing I want to say is this platform, this Upskill Maine portal, is going to be the portal used for applying for funding for upcoming trainings that you may have. It is also going to be where you will then also notify us of either changes to an approved funding application or request, or provide closeout information when a training has completed and you need to inform us that who has attended, who hasn't attended, if things have changed, or how you will report that to us. The first thing that I will say is it is a secured login. So that is a change from our previous funding application. You will be issued credentials between now and Monday, and you should be given sort of an email login and the ability to set a password to be able to access the system. So that is the first answer to the first question is, how do I get here? You're going to be given a link and credentials. So I will go ahead and sign in. I am not using an email, but you will likely be using an email. And then I am logged in, and you can notice that you're logged in based on having a login name in where it used to say sign in. I also want to point out something here very quickly. So this is part of the information that you can see instantly. And an important piece of this would be, I can look at my profile as I'm logged in. And I really want to show this simply so that it shows you which company you are associated with that login. You are automatically, I'm built in this company as a contact. So if I'm applying as a hospital or a business, when I log in, I'm already associated with that company. And this is where you see that you're logged in as that company's representative. The other thing that I'm going to show is get right into a compact member funding request. So some of this language may change as some of these notes apply to our old application. However, you land on a compact member grant application funding request page, sorry. And right down at the bottom, we have a bold blue button, apply for funding. While I'm here, I'm going to show you that I've already been working in this portal. And so I have existing applications on my application list that are active at the bottom. I could also have inactive funding requests that I have previously submitted or canceled. I want to show you that there are two lists that will be available here for you as you move forward. If I look at my actives, if you don't have anything here, you would have no records to display across the bottom. And that is typically what you will see when you are first logging into the system. So let's go right into apply for funding, and we will open up a compact member funding request. The very first change that you will see between the old system and the new is that I don't have to put in my company information because I'm logged in. It already knows which company I'm applying for. That is a default based on how you are logged in. I can then immediately add my training class title. Notice I'm not using punctuation marks. Very importantly, there is a reminder, please do not use slashes, dashes, underscores, any punctuation of any kind, if at all possible. That tends to mess with SQL code, which is what runs the back end of the system. I can choose a start date, hopefully at least a day beyond, but as early as you can tell us about your training, we really encourage you to apply early. The sooner we know, the sooner we can approve funding, look at funding availability, etc. Please don't wait till the last minute, but if you do, you have to apply for funding at least a day prior to the start of the training. So we're going to start this next Monday. We're going to end it also next Monday. Now, I'm going to train 2 people in my upcoming CPR AED training. It's going to take 6 hours to complete that training. Couple of new questions. Is this funding request for a college credit class? That is important when we're calculating the hours associated with the training. If it's a 3-credit college class, for example, it will ask me how many credits. We will automatically have the information so that we can calculate that it's 45 hours typically for a college class that is 3 credits. That information right there helps us in case people say that a 3-credit class is 3 hours, we can make a correction very quickly. If it's not a college credit class, just say no. Is it an online training? If yes, you will be prompted to provide a training link. This is a link to the training vendors page where you have access to the training information. This helps our researchers doing the approvals to have direct information based on that online information. Helps them to approve the application more quickly. If it's no, it's not an online training, which CPR AED typically wouldn't be, we would say no. Here's where we get into the money. It's $50 per person. We have 2 people being trained. I'm going to request $100. That is the amount you are being charged by your training provider. You're paying $50 per person. Your total request is the total amount, $50 times 2 for $100. Another new item, you are allowed to request a 10% administrative fee. This is for doing this paperwork, as it were. This very importantly, so if you're requesting $100 and you request a $10 admin fee, we would approve 50%, which would be $50. We are able to add $5 to that training reimbursement for you, but please know that that $5 will be allocated against the employee's $1,200 allocation and your overall total. So it is the ability to, for those training funding applications that are less than $1,200 typically, you're going to be able to get an additional 10% of the awarded amount with that request. You do not have to request it. You can say yes or no. If you say yes, we will simply calculate that additional amount and provide it to you from the back end. It does not display here. If the training is a flat rate cost, and typically what I'll talk about here is if someone comes in and provides training to your organization, they charge you $5,000. If 10 people show up, 10 people are sharing the $5,000. If 15 people show up to the training, then 15 people are sharing the $5,000. If you mark yes, that helps us when we're doing approvals to allocate that funding to each person. If the number of attendees changes, it also allows us to continue to pay you the reimbursement based on $5,000, but we will reallocate the funding based on the actual attendees that you provide us when we're closing out the training. That helps us with the math, basically, and prevents further questions. We'll put a basic description of the course. And a basic description. Oops. Typing is not like a fast thing here. Okay. Does the training lead to a credential? In this case, is it a credential? Is it a license? Let's say yes, and there are options that are available. The 4 options available are apprenticeship, certification, digital badge, whoops, and one other, which I can't see because I have the screen in my way. Licensure. We could say that it's a certification because it's CPR AED certification. You get a card, you're certified for 2 years typically. So we will select certification and go to the next page. On the next page, we provide the training vendor information. Who's providing the training for you? This is typically not a person's name. This is typically the company we are looking for, or internal if you are providing the training internally. If it's an internal training that you are certified to provide to your own employees, you would select internal training and we would say next. So that replaces having to fill out company information as the vendor. If we know who the company is already, it's you. If it's an other training vendor or a community college, you would make those selections. I'm going to choose other training vendor because it's the most variability here. And I'm going to, a little bit of trick here. So does your training vendor appear in the dropdown? We're going to skip down to that and say, no, they don't. In which case you will provide the training vendor name. So it could be ABC Training Company. You're going to provide a telephone number, their email, a website, theoretically, a address, city, zip code. Just jumping through here quickly. And that's how you're going to provide that vendor information if they are not in the drop-down list. I'm going to go ahead and say next there, just because I know there's some variability in the tool right now that we're still finalizing. Our drop-down list will typically be the drop-down list that you have seen previously on our applications if you filed them. Those are pre-approved relationships that we have with the vendors based on them providing additional information so that we can add them to the drop-down to make that selection available to you. And then lastly, we have a participant list. This is where we've typically filed the Excel sheet upload to provide us with the basic information about your participants that are participating in the training. Oh, I'm going to cancel that. Hold on. So we have a template available. I'm going to actually click on the template and show you the template. And then I'm going to back out and go grab one that I've already saved. So the fields that are required are actually listed across the top. One of the changes here is the BI code. That is your company code. I'll show you where to find that if you don't know it, but that is available on your profile information. Your first name of your employee, the first trainee, last name, job title. Some of those should look familiar. Their email address, and another new one, their date of birth. So those are 2 new pieces of information that we're adding to the 4 that we've previously grabbed. Date of birth and the BI code, which is your company login ID in the training registration platform. I'm sure that will generate a question or two. For now, let me go back. If I can go back. And I've lost it. Hang on. It's not coming up. Bear with me a second. Um, Okay. Finally found the button I was looking for. There we go. Apologize for that. I'm actually going to add a template that I have previously saved. And we're almost finished. Where I've added that, it will show participant template has been uploaded. It does not yet show who's on that template. It takes about 30 seconds. It will load. A couple of things I can do would be to try to hit the next button and perhaps come back. I will show the attestation page. This is typically the last page on our previous funding applications. Before you can hit submit on this page, you must click yes. And the submit button becomes active. I'm just going to try to, because just a few more seconds, it should be able to load. And there we are. So I grabbed a sheet that had 10 participants on it, but this shows you that it's going to create a grid format of who is on that sheet so that they're going to be loaded into the system. You can actually look and see who you uploaded to be included in the training. Now, remember, I said 2 people on the first page at $50 a piece. I've got 10 on this list. So you want to be careful and make sure. If it's the wrong list, you do have the ability to clear out all participants and start over with a new file. You will also have a grid here where you can add 1 or 2 at a time, and you do not have to use the upload. That's not showing here today, but that should be available. And then finally, I will hit yes and go ahead and submit it again. In addition to getting your funding request has been submitted successfully, which is what we previously provided, you are giving next step information for what to do and what to expect. So you can read summary, basically participant information and providing registration data. There may be some minor changes in the language here. Additional information may be required. Our team, as they're approving it, may want to get in touch with you and do what we call a send back. They may request additional information about this training if they need it. You can make an amendment to this training, and I'll show you where you can do that. You can withdraw the training request, or you can receive an approved funding notification by email, and you'll actually see that in this portal as well. So I'm going to go back to my Compact Member Funding Request tab. And if I go home, I can always go find it at Compact Member Funding Request. And now I have, instead of 2, I have 3 applications listed on the bottom. And this is the one that I just added. I can basically click on it and view it. I'm not going to do that to you. But some of the other actions I can take, I can withdraw the application. So right there, oops, I made a mistake. We're actually canceling that. The boss just informed me. We can withdraw the application. And that's all the notification that's required. We haven't yet approved it. We haven't assigned funding to it. We haven't done anything. We can also amend it almost immediately. We could change the dates. We could change the amount charged. We could change the applicant or the participant list, sorry. Or we can go view the application. And that will basically let us view and make edits as we need to, if we need to make an amendment. One other thing I want to show you, this current approval step should be your indication of the stage that this application is sitting at. This says assign funding. That is nothing you need to do. That is something we are doing. So there may be minor changes again in some of the language as we enhance this. Typically, it would be pending approval. That's where we're at in this stage now that I've just submitted this application. Once it is approved, you will have an indication it's an approved application. It's approved for funding, or it's ready for closeout, as is this case. This one is ready for closeout because the date has passed. The end date was the 18th of February, which was yesterday. You have 45 days from the end date to alert us that all registrations are in the registration portal, which we are still using for registration purposes only. And you can, right here in place of an email to our MCCS training records email, you can alert us who completed the training. And you do that by looking at the training list in that particular one. editing each attendee and saying completed and submit. That shows now that she completed the training. I can also show that I completed the training by editing, or perhaps I did not attend. That will generate our approval team to know that we don't want to pay for that attendee because they did not actually attend the training. They never started the training. If they withdraw partway through, that's a different status. If they never attend the training, we want to put their funding allocation back so that they can attend future trainings and still have their training allocation available for the year. So it's very important that these statuses accurately reflect what actually took place in that training. And this will replace the email notification to us to let us know who completed and who did not. Chris, unless you would like me to show anything else, maybe a slight hint as to profile information or not, I can either wrap it up or not.
So, Edward, if you want to walk the team through how to see their profile and who is on their
Yes.
contact member as a contact.
Okay.
And how we would go about adding someone. So if like you're the only person that's currently on it, and let's say I'm going to work for you and you want me to be able to put in funding requests, what does that look like?
So I will go to my login in that drop down, and I have, if I can move some things out of my way here, hold on. I have my profile, which is where I have basic information. I also have organization management. Right before I show you what Chris was just alluding to, I'm just going to show you, because I know we're going to get lots of questions. I mentioned the training registration portal, which is where you provide the full data on each employee that we require under the grant. The demographic information, the name, address, phone, other information like that, highest level of educational attainment. That's the full registration. That is in that other portal. You still have to use that other portal. I want to make that very clear. However, future state, just so that you know, you will start to see those fields appearing in this portal. So there is the intention to merge the functionality. And it is pre-built a long way along the way. Organization management, this is where you are in control of who's in the organization. So this is our basic organization name, industry served, description. This is how you enrolled as a company. This is what we have for basic information, including the BI code that I mentioned, which goes on the participant list beside each name when you're uploading that. That HA, in this case, 12981, needs to be appended to that participant list currently. Notice also we have your EIN number, which is how new enrollees are coming in. Those of you who have participated previously, your EIN is available here because we have your W-9 on file. I have the company address, and then I get to the contact area. So I have key contacts, the primary, a finance contact, and the MOA signing contact, typically company president, chief executive, etc. Whoever is in charge of the organization typically is who's signed the MOA. The primary contact is what we typically look for our interactions between the workforce development coordinators and our compact member organizations. Under contacts, I have organizational admins. The primary contact is an admin. I also have other organizational admins, and this is what Chris was alluding to. Who can actually file applications on behalf of the organization? That's the organizational admin. I have two listed here. I can create a new contact for the company by providing first name, an email address, title, and very importantly, organizational admin will give them full ability to view and file applications for your organization. Without having them in here, they cannot access your portal unless they get access to your login, which I don't recommend. And you would simply submit. It would add them as a contact. They would have an invitation provided. Oops. and they would have the ability to create their login credentials through that invitation. It's automatically going to be sent to them. And then they can log into the portal as their own login, representing this company because they're automatically tied to this company. And then they can file applications on your behalf.
So, Edward, I'm going to have you pause for 1 second because you're going to remember this quicker than I will. When we're going in and we're putting in the request for the compact member funding and for the type of training certification, Julia asked a question regarding what she should select if it's not necessarily that they won't complete all of the requirements for certification. And do you remember what the options were on that drop down list?
So it's either an approved apprenticeship, which is a formal apprenticeship through the Maine Department of Labor. So you're enrolled as apprentice, sponsor, and apprentice. It's certification. And I believe our understanding is if you check yes, if it is a pathway toward a certification, the training is on a certification path, but does not culminate in the certification, we would still want to mark it as a certification pathway.
Because they're in process with that entire
Correct.
pathway versus a single training like the AEMT that you used, right? That provides a certification.
Right.
If it's one of many courses, I would still put that because ultimately I'm training up to that level with that certification.
Correct. In that case, if it's AEMT or something like it, if it's a licensure like an LPN or an RN or something in the medical field, something that has a license associated with it, maybe a financial license in the banking industry. If it's licensure through the state, then we want to put licensure as the pathway. Even if it's one class, the fourth class and 15 required, we still want to see it as part of the licensure path. Certification similarly, if it's a certification, you get a credential at the end that says you are certified to perform CPR. That would be a certification. And then the other one was off the top of my head, I can't remember. It was something else that was very obvious. If it is none of those four, just say no.
Perfect. Thank you, Edward.
Yep. And I realized there are various options that I could show, but it would really kind of slow things down. So I wanted to show a fairly straightforward, still showing a couple of options, but I wanted to show a fairly straightforward application just because the vast majority are pretty straightforward and simple.
Edward, if you would scroll up for a second and go back to the home screen of Upskill Maine.
Yep.
So the other option that is here for anybody who is a new compact member is right next to the compact member funding request, which will stay hidden until you are a registered compact member. It has the become a compact member. This is where folks can apply to become a workforce development compact member. Similarly to our compact member funding request, it's a pretty straightforward process. Prompts through to ask the different questions about your business. Also allows for the uploading of the W-9 at the end. And then what happens is once you've done that, it will generate the MOA that is sent through Adobe Sign to the person that we have on record for the business. They will complete that. It comes back to us. Once we have that back, you are an active compact member. And then the compact member funding request box will show to the right of the become a compact member. If for some reason you've started that process, but you're not seeing the compact member funding request, what that means is it means that final step with the MOA has not happened. So in those instances, because it is coming from Adobe, some people have very sophisticated spam folders. So if you've signed up to become a compact member and you're not seeing the Adobe Sign email, please check your spam/junk box to see if that MOA is sitting there. And that's for people who are signing up as new compact members only. Thank you very much. I think Heather has some additional slides, so I will have you stop sharing and I will have Heather bring up her slides.
Absolutely. Just a few things to cover for resources that we're putting together. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Heather Douglas. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for the Alfond Center. So there are some great questions in chat. So as I go through what we're going to have for resources, please know that some of those are being built out based on the questions that you have. So today, I'll go through the timeline next. But our website, we're going to have all the resources and guides, processes listed there. There will be an FAQ document that's put together after this call that will go out with a recording. And then document both, I believe, a video platform as well as a printable instruction guide for those. So that don't worry about copying down this link. It will be included in the email. And then what happens next? So today, again, you're going to get that recording and FAQ document. We're going to finalize all the training documentation for you. Upskill Maine, which again, we're not renaming our actual program. Upskill Maine is the grant management portal that you'll be in, but that goes live on the 24th. On the morning of the 24th, you are going to receive another email that's going to have the link to the portal and instructions on how to log in. It will also have all of the other promise documentation in it that we have talked about today. And then last but not least, certainly the most important part of why we're here today is to answer your questions. Our workforce coordinators have been doing an excellent job of answering questions in the chat. Please feel free to continue using chat to ask questions, but you can also ask them live. And to do that in an orderly fashion, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a little heart icon that says react under it, and there is a raise hand feature. And as people hit that raise hand feature, if they have a question, I believe Chris Winstead will be calling on them. So please feel free to use either that you're most comfortable with. We'll still be answering questions in chat.
And a couple quick reminders that I think are important for the entire group. We held some webinars as we launched our new Alfond, as we're affectionately referring to it as 3.0. And there were a couple changes with this round of funding. One dealt with the payments. It's 100% payment following completion of the training. And Edward alluded to the 45-day window from the end date. So easy math, right? And we can have everyone check my numbers. But if your training ends on March 1st, then your 45-day window would take you through April 15th, if I've done my math correctly. So within those 45 days, as soon as you process your closeout and all of the completion data on the individuals, that's when the payment is sent out based off of the approved amount. Additionally, there is an annual cap for all businesses of $250,000. This doesn't impact all of our businesses, but it does impact some, right? So what that means is that requests that are coming in order to keep these funds available to help as many Maine businesses as we could, we did institute the $250,000 cap per year. And again, it's a calendar year, so January 1st through December 31st. And then the final piece is as soon as you know that you are doing training, you want to put that request in. Last minute requests sometimes can cause a delay. So you want to leave as much time as possible to get that in for that approval to come through. Kevin, it looks like your hand went up first. What's your question?
Hi, so in the chat box area, I just want to maybe a little bit more clarity. When submitting a request for internal training, is there a flat rate for the trainer that you're using to calculate, or we should be using to calculate, or are we just using the salary or rate of the trainers?
So, and workforce development coordinators who are on, please correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're going to do in that is you're going to know what that flat rate cost is for that training, and that's what you're going to submit. So you're going to put in your flat rate cost for that training, right? So having that person do that training with your number of employees. And then what we end up doing is we break that up over the number of employees, and that goes against their $1,200 annual cap.
And what would be the rate?
So the rate in that scenario, so if I'm providing that training for you, right, and you have, and this is where I want some clarity from the workforce development coordinators if I misspeak, but you know that my salary is $20 an hour, right? I'm providing the training. It's a 10-hour training, so we know that there's a $200 cost for me to provide that training. So that would be your flat rate on that. Workforce development coordinators, Edward, Diane, or Maureen, did I answer that correctly?
I can jump in and help. Yeah. So we typically use the hourly rate, and I think we have allowed previously the loaded rate. So if you have a loaded benefits included rate for your internal training department, whoever's providing that, if different instructors may have a different internal loaded rate. Supplies can be included, coffee and donuts cannot. But if you're doing internal training, that's typically what we've used. And it's
And
the hourly rate times the hours and then divide by the number of people to get the per person. You're right on,
And
Chris.
Kevin, where are you located?
I'm located in Augusta.
So, Nikki Woodhouse, who has recently joined us as your workforce development coordinator. Nikki is based out of KV. Nikki can help you as you're looking to build out what those rates are if you have questions directly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Joanna.
Hi. So am I correct that we have 10 different members? So I have 10 different contacts originally that we had for the compact members. They would just, if we're going to handle it centrally, they would just add me or one of our workforce development folks as an organizational admin. Then we'd be able to help manage.
What's going to happen in those scenarios, and our workforce development coordinators are going to be reaching out to our compact members that have multiple membership organizations. Joanna, are you with
Northern Light Health.
Yep. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen is, because of the way the system is designed, for example, myself, my email address can only be assigned to one compact member. So using my work email address, cwinstead@mainecc, I can only have that assigned to one of those compact members. So in that scenario, what the workforce development coordinators are going to do is they're going to work with each of those entities that have multiple divisions, because what you would need is you would need an individual email address for each of those companies. So you won't be able to manage all of them through one login. You'll only see the primary one that you're attached to. So I think either Edward or Chris are going to be reaching out to Northern Light to kind of walk through that process.
Okay.
For other, and the reason being is because of the different EIN numbers. If
Mhm.
you all shared one EIN number, what would happen is, I know,
I'm not
A, it would
gonna.
make life a little bit easier. B, what we have is we have what's called a parent-child relationship within Upskill Maine. So what that allows for is a company with multiple locations, one administrator like yourself, right? If you were that person that was listed, would be able to see all of the requests if you all shared one EIN number. So like I said, either Edward or Chris will be reaching directly out to folks at Northern Light to help get you set up to ensure that everything is smooth, and to the other compact members that run in a similar situation. And a reminder with the training requests that those are for frontline staff only. So your folks that are on your teams, who are interacting with patients or customers or individuals that you're working with. That's what these training dollars are designed for. Other questions?
So we still have some coming in chat, and we're answering those. I think we will stay on for a little bit to help answer further questions. But I
So-
want to, before we close up, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, to Amanda's question about are all courses available online or are some required on site, that really is going to be directed by what the compact member is doing for the training for folks. So it may be that you have an online portal that your employees are going through, or you're bringing Dan to your site to do that training. That really is directed by what your needs are in the training that you're delivering for your employees. Kevin.
Sorry for so many questions.
No, you're allowed as many as you have.
Okay. So with the Maine Department of Corrections, within Maine Department of Corrections, there's obviously specific departments and all that. When we submit a request, let's say for the training department, does that reimbursement would that come to our general fund or come back into our training department?
So the question, because you cut out just a little bit, but your question is, if you have multiple departments, what happens with the payment? Who does it end up to? And that will go to the address that we have on file. So some compact members that have multiple divisions, they have checks that go to a central office, or they have payments that go to each of the individual branches. So that information will flow through. What we're encouraging all of our compact members to do is when the new system goes live, you saw Edward go in and look at his profile. It's always a good idea to go in and make sure that just as we were doing the upload of data that we got everything to be accurately entered. So it's always a good idea just to double check and make sure that what we've put in is accurate. The nice thing about this system is that you can go in and easily make changes to that core data. And we can take a look for you. And if for some reason, let's say you're not tagged where that payment has to go to a specific location, that is something that Nikki can help you with as your workforce development coordinator.
Thanks again, Chris.
You're welcome. Amy.
Yes, question back on the internal trainers and calculating the rate. Can you also include the internal trainers' time preparing for the training materials, preparing all of that?
So Edward, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have allowed for the building of that training as part of that cost. Is that accurate?
That is correct. We typically say a reasonable amount of preparation and or development. And basically what you do is you're keeping track of that record. So you're kind of keeping a file of how you calculated the cost typically for an internal training. Just something that you have to refer back to so that you can, if we are audited or if we have to ask a question, you can say, well, I calculated it based on this, this, and this.
Yes,
Just so you have
certainly.
something to go by.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And Amanda also asked the question, are fees the same for college courses? Amanda, do you want to explain that one a little bit more?
Sure. So you mentioned that a lot of these courses were, excuse me, I think you said 6 hours. But for a college credit course, it might be 45 hours compared to that certificate course. Would the cost for an actual college credit course vary compared to the 6-hour course, for example?
Yeah, so the important thing to think about with that total dollar amount that's there for training is it's looking at that cost, right? So, and Edward, I'm looking at you, so I'm going to have you verify. So in that scenario, the 3-credit course, right? There's the per hour credit cost that's there. So if
Okay.
it's with the Maine community college system, that's $96 per credit. Edward, we're also allowing in that scenario that if I'm registering for that class, and I'm using it using the compact member funding and my employer is putting it in, my total cost can also include any of the registration fees that are attached to that for that. So if it is the cost of the course is the $96 times 3 plus a registration fee, that total cost, let's say, is $320, right? You would put in the funding request based off of the 320. We would pay the half back, right? So you're paying for half of it. The Alfond funding is providing the other half.
And I
But
can round that
Understood.
out. I can
Yeah.
round that out a little more as well. So some folks may be a little puzzled. We do have scholarships also separate from this funding application that are specific to the community college system. And we promote those as a priority to compact member organizations and their employees as a priority each semester. More information is available on that on our site. Reach out to your coordinator to ask. So we actually have scholarships available for the community colleges for courses that are separate from the funding that we just went through. However, many organizations have a tuition reimbursement plan or something similar, or an employee-driven request that an employee is taking classes at Husson and they want to come and say, I'd like to have you ask for this reimbursement. If you're not paying for other training for me this year, would you do this and I can get reimbursed for it? We allow that. They can come to you with their fee statement. Here's what my cost is for these 2 classes I'm taking. You can submit their fee statement, their total tuition, et cetera, not net of funding, but their total top line cost. as the basis of cost for those two classes, provide the full description of what those classes are, submit that as a request, and we would reimburse 50% of their cost to you. And that's where the 10% administrative fee comes in. If it's under that $1,200 cap and you as the employer want to get 10% for forwarding that request through your organization to get reimbursement on behalf of your employee, if you ask for the 10%, you're effectively taking away potential future funding this current year from them. You're taking it out of their $1,200.
Okay.
You can do
And-
that. You don't have to do that. It's your choice whether you want to do that. But that's really where one example where that comes into play, really specifically.
And
Thank
then
you. And
Amanda, your second part of that, your other question that I think you put in the chat was about, can administrators monitor the progress of the trainees? Yeah,
yes.
so in that scenario, what we're not seeing is we're not seeing the coursework that's going on, right? What we're getting at the end is their completion data. So it won't show you like, has Chris been attending those, those classes, what his homework percentage is. That's not built into the system. What would happen is at the end of that, so if they're going with one of the community college courses, those grades are uploaded at the end, right? So that's your chance to see, did Chris complete? Did Chris withdraw? Did he not show up? Right? And you're going to be able to see that as it's recorded.
Okay. And just to clarify one of the questions I had earlier as well regarding on-site classes, are all of the certificate programs available simply online if it's not an actual for college credit? Any of, the approximately 6-hour courses, are they all online, or might
So you're
there be
talking
some?
about within the community college system? I would say it's a
Yes.
mix. It's going to really be dependent on what each of those campuses is offering.
Okay.
And if you have a program that you're looking at, I'm going to pick MERTC, right? So mental health rehabilitation therapy. We have in-person courses, and then we have several of our campuses like WC, Washington County, that offers the entire program online and is
Okay.
geared as an online program. So what I would encourage is if you have employees who are looking at those trainings, you can reach out to the workforce development coordinator, or you can talk directly with the campuses to see what's available versus online or in person.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, you have your hand up.
Kay is in Kanye.
Oh, very nice to meet you.
Hi, thank you so much for this afternoon. The changes look wonderful. I would love to have better understanding of the definition of frontline personnel.
Yeah, so frontline and personnel, the easiest way to think about this is these are your employees who are working directly with your clients. When we talk about frontline, we talk about those employees who are within the main businesses. What we're not talking about is the CEO, the CFO, the Chief Human Resources Officer. We're really talking about those entry-level and mid-level employees who these dollars provide upskilling so that they can grow within their positions and move within the company.
Great. I was worried that we are saying back office operations is no longer
So
accounted.
back office operations, they're your front line because they're helping
Yes.
your employees who if from an easy standpoint, and someone please correct me if I'm misspeaking on this, from an easy standpoint, who this is geared towards is this is geared towards your employees who might be entry level, right? And midway through their careers to give them the upskilling to be able to grow. What this isn't for is for the C-suite level
Yes.
of your employees, your leadership team, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
And just to follow up on that, the design behind the grant that we went for with the Alfond Foundation, this is the understanding is that most professional development training goes to management and C-suite folks. The frontline workers were not offered training, so only about 20% nationally of the professional development training went to frontline staff. So the design behind the grant was really helping those frontline individuals get the skills so that they can receive pay increases, promotions into the future and rise up into the organization. So that was the design behind why we had the term of frontline staff.
Judy Folsom had the question. She said, when you send us the instructions, will it include the entire process front to back? This would include going to the site, how to enter the individual's demographic info. I found the process a bit clunky and would love best practices to streamline my process. Heather?
Yeah, so do you want to talk a little bit about lumens and how we'll still be using that system, Chris? And yes, I will include certainly for Upskill Maine, but then for the entire process of what that looks like. That's a great point.
So our hope, as you heard me allude to, we have two phases for Upskill Maine's deployment, phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 1, we currently have the ability to sign up as a compact member and then also to put in the compact member funding request. In phase 2, where we're going to have more integrations with our finance and back office so that you're seeing payments, our hope is that we'll also have a better integration with Lumens or an alternative based on registering your employees. So the process is still going to stay the same with Lumens from a registration portal standpoint, where you will have to go in and register the participants. But our ultimate goal is to be able to have a higher level of integration between Upskill Maine and Lumens so that you're only having to go into one system. But Judy, we will provide documentation. And I would say, Judy, where are you located within the state?
Bar Harbor.
Oh, hi. So I'm going to have Chris Young, if you put your contact information in the chat, we will have Chris Young reach out to you because he can walk through Lumens with you. But yes, Lumens has some steps that are a little bit slow. Our registration portal. I'm saying Lumens, I apologize. That's the actual tool that we're using. But the registration portal where you're putting in the participant information, it has a few bumps as you're doing it, which is why our ultimate goal is to be able to have everything within Upskill Maine. It's a much easier system.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So from a data migration standpoint, one thing that I think is important for everyone to know is that our requests that started in August 1st, will be showing up in the system. Our requests that started as of January 1st will also be showing in the system. The closeout process for all funding requests that started January 1st or after, right? So prior to the new system, we'll migrate all of those into Upskill Maine, and you will see those projects, those training programs out there, and be able to use the closeout function for those programs. If you've already requested funds and you've closed something out, you'll see the history, but you won't have to worry about closing it out in the new system.
Okay.
Kenny.
Were you calling on me, Kanye? Oh, yes. Hi. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to check on, there was someone else who asked the same question about providing date of birth and the kind of pushback we're getting from employees. We are definitely having that with some of our Athena Health employees who are feeling that the personal information, they'd rather be the ones who provide it. And I don't know if there's been any adjustment on that aspect.
So that is one of the required data sets that we have to collect. And what that allows us to do is it allows us that when we're putting individuals into the system, we can differentiate or we can determine that it's a duplication. And this would be for any of our workforce development coordinators. How have your businesses communicated that out to their employees when they're getting questions? Have you seen any best practices that we can share with this group in terms of messaging on that for the employees that might help assuage some of the trepidation around providing a DOB? Chris?
One of the things that that I've recommended a couple of compact members have used is that and this works for new employees, in the employee onboarding, a new employee at your business, they have, we have a generic paper registration form that we've created that captures all the information, not only that you would need for the training request, but that you would need for the registration process on the backside. So the employee provides that immediately when they're hired. And there's some compact members that put a little language in there. This is so we can apply for and use Alfond training funds for the training we're requesting for you, this information. And then I think they took some language from us about where we don't share the information and stuff like that. Now that is a great method to take care of new employees. And so I recognize there's a gap there, but even new employees could get a paper version, or I have one compact member that actually created an internal electronic document. Not something that they're going to send to us, but something they're going to keep in a master spreadsheet so that, number one, if they need to, they can enter the employee registration information into the lumens that was spoken about, but also two, that they have that information. And the employee also has a quick glimpse into what some of the things that being an employee at that business might include getting trainings from the Alfond Foundation.
Yes, we have done that for new employees, and we think it's going to work. The one aspect was when they get the email and it's showing them their home address and all those details. That's actually where we get the biggest pushback. Like, how is this all in here? And so we understand the information that has to be collected, but we're asking if the email that goes out to the employees would not almost overemphasize the information that's been collected. And that's where I'll end with that.
Thank you for that feedback. So we are coming. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so we are at time. Matter of fact, we're over time. I know staff will stay on for answering some additional questions. I want to thank Edward, Chris, Heather, and the rest of the Alfond Center team for all their hard work in preparing for this and also getting the grant management system up and running for a successful launch on Monday. We're excited to work with everybody here on this call and others. This is our opportunity to bring other resources to employers and organizations to help upskill their folks. Again, the data collection information that we have is part of our reporting that we're required to do back with the foundation, who has gifted us $75.5 million to deploy this statewide. So we're really excited about the partnership we have, everybody. I know you'll receive some follow-up information. This is an improved system from where we used to be. It's sort of like coming out of the darkness into the light, and it will be much easier. I won't say it won't have bumps, because we always have bumps, right? But it's a new improved system that we're excited that you're all involved with. So thank you so much. I know staff will stay on for additional questions if you'd like to do that. So I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you all.
Chris Young, if you are still on, could you send me a copy of that PowerPoint as well for the that you have for the entire process? Because I can.
It's not the entire process. I broke it down by the lumens process.
Gotcha.
I will get that to you first thing. I had to tidy it up because what I've done is personalize it each time.
Gotcha.
I'm going to kind of step away from that and just have the generic version. But it's the lumens process, basically. Getting in, adding on their end, the ability to add an employee.
Chris, can you send that to me as well?
Sure.
I have gotten a couple of requests lately about sharing kind of just a flip through guide, a very simple flip through guide that I think could
very
be
simple. It's like 12 slides. I didn't want to, there's a lot of questions outside of those 12 slides, but this is basically getting you in the door.
Rock, thank you.
Heather Douglas, can we at some point, and I know maybe this isn't the best place to ask you this, but we need to tweak the approval email that goes out when they get their funding request
Yes.
approval?
Yes.
So there's a line in there about enter your company user and your registration, and it's missing information on the password piece. So a lot of my compact members think that the employee is supposed to go there and create their profile.
Okay. Yeah, let's touch base after this. Absolutely.
Great, thanks.
Excellent. Very good job, folks. Are we good, Heather?
Believe we are good. If there's any other questions that our compact members have, certainly reach out to your workforce development coordinator, or you can respond to the email that I sent, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Heather.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.